Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé, The Last Resort, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Keep in mind that everything I say is completely speculative based on very little information. Let's watch.
I just didn't feel interested anymore.
I think Kalani gave us a lot of chances. I hope she had fun last night and have orgasm or something. I'm happy for her.
This is a very, very common reaction from, I paused on a bad frame there. I'll do better here. There we go. So you'll get this reaction almost universally, even from therapists. And I noticed this early in my career, that I would hear from people talking about their therapists, or I'd hear about therapists talking about their clients, and they would say, hey, Asuelu's been treating you like shit. You deserve this. And I'm thinking, huh? You deserve to break up. Yeah, absolutely. But two wrongs don't make a right. Even if we absolutely acknowledge that the amount of wrongs that Asuelu has committed is, a million times worse than what Kalani does. But when we start to go down that road, then where do we stop? What's the demarcation line between, how much bad can I, if Stacy treats me terribly, how much bad am I allowed? It's just, how about we just, as ourselves, regardless of what's happening, we just say, I'm not going to do that. I don't want that to be done to me. It's been done to me a lot, the cheating. I don't think cheating is okay, or lying is okay, or deceiving is okay. They apparently don't care. Asuelu doesn't give a crap, but I do, and I'm going to live by this principle. So anyway, friends will often react this way. And, friends, what are you going to do? But with therapists, at the very least, I think it's important to raise these kinds of discussions. Now, it's a very weird topic, though, because it's hard to train people on this issue. For me to train people, like, when are you supportive and when are you not supportive, so to speak? And how do you bring it up, right? A client sits down and says, you've been talking for 6 months about, say Kalani is your client, and Kalani's just like, he cheated on me again. He didn't come home last night. I don't know about diseases. He denies it, but then I found out he doesn't work very much. He isn't a good father, and it sounds credible to you as a therapist, and you're just listening to it. My God, what is going on? And then she comes in one day and she says, so I unblocked that guy, and I got together with him, and it just feels so nice to have someone that treats me well. It's not, he has a job, and he has kids from a previous marriage, and he spends all of his time with them. He's the primary parent. He's a good father. He listens to me. He doesn't drink all the time, whatever. And it's tempting as a therapist to be like, oh, wow, okay, this is a step in the right direction. Good for you. And maybe partially it is, but and the client isn't asking me necessarily. Kalani wouldn't necessarily be asking me as a therapist to say, hey, help me with my value adherence. Kirk, am I following my values? Tell me. That's not a goal of therapy necessarily that Kalani would have. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, what do I do with that? It's complicated. What's my relationship like with Kalani? What are the goals of therapy? What hopes do I have for Kalani? I guess just to demonstrate this completely, what would I say generally? Of course, you have a whole hour to say various things and get sort of a vibe of like, so I guess I would say something to sense where she was at. I'd be like, well, first off, I'd be very supportive, and I'd ask her how she felt. And I'd ask her, what she liked about it, and actually hope that she can start matching up some things of like, oh, I do deserve better, those kinds of important things. And also, instead of just people commenting on her, instead I would be very interested in her subjective experience from the inside. Just like, how do you feel? And I wouldn't make any assumptions. It's how does it feel to be attracted to someone? How does it feel to be treated well? How does it feel to be away from Asuelu? Those kinds of stepping into her own body and feelings space. That would be the primary thing. And then eventually, though, I would probably say something like, well, so from my understanding, Asuelu didn't know that you were going to be doing this, right? And Kalani would say, yeah. And I'd say, well, how do you feel about that? So just me asking that question implies something to some extent. I mean, I'm not saying anything directly, but the fact that I'm asking that question, it does sort of imply something. And that's important for therapists to know, that when we ask a question, it often does imply something. I'm not implying that she's a bad person, because I don't believe that, but I am implying that her current narrative around that action might not be the full narrative, the full, mature, differentiated, nuanced narrative about that behavior that she engaged in. That's what I'm implying, and that's what I believe. So by asking that question, it's implying, well, it's probably more to this story here, and there's probably an area that you're neglecting. It might be a small area, but it's probably an area that I believe is important. And probably, and I guess that's the way I would approach it, would be that I would know, and Kalani has been pretty clear about this, even in the little bits that we've seen, that she, holds the value of truth and not cheating and not lying to be paramount. So I would probably say, you talked about how Asuelu would cheat on you and how you believe that to be wrong on a number of levels. Well, I don't think anyone would fault you for doing this, but it is technically cheating, because you're lying to your current husband, who you have a commitment to, and you haven't informed him that you don't have a commitment. He hasn't honored that commitment to you, but you haven't said that the commitment is over for you, and you were with someone else. And I know that that's a value that have you changed your values, or how does that fit? And I'm not shaming you, but, just wondering how you feel about all that. Now, if Kalani said, like, well, I don't know, I feel like I'm on the way to getting a divorce, whatever, I'd drop it and just move forward. I'm not the morality police, but I do think that all of us benefit from that discussion, from that nuanced discussion. And friends rarely provide us with that. Friends are notoriously supportive in situations like this. And like I said, some therapists are too.
I deserve more than just feeling like all the time. I just cry. With Asuelu, I just cry all the time. That's all we do.
Yeah. I get he's hurted you, and I don't know the whole story, but how are you working on your marriage if this guy's here?
I think if I tell you the whole story, you'll understand.
Now, Angela's going down the road of how are you going to work on this marriage? And I wonder where that's coming from. Is that from a religious place? Because that often will be the motivation behind that, of just like, but there's this divine thing called a marriage, and you vowed under God, and God doesn't believe in divorce, this kind of nonsense. And shouldn't you be working on your marriage? So there's that possibility. But there's another possibility that she's just taking it upon herself to speak for the producers, because she believes that the producers are like, but you're here to be filmed with Asuelu. This guy, he's not being filmed, so maybe he will be. But sometimes I hear that on this show, this sort of like with Love is Blind or Married at First Sight, other kinds of shows, there'll just be this unspoken rule that you're supposed, like with Love is Blind, you have to go to the altar, and you're somehow failing if you don't, or something. It's like, what? And so sometimes I wonder if people either are speaking for the producers because the producers are telling them to, or they're just they're absorbing the producer's point of view. Because, the thing that we don't see is they spend a lot of time with the producers. They have probably daily long conversations in the morning, in the evening, and it would be impossible to not absorb some of their vibes, some of their motivations, some of their agenda.
Basically, from the beginning of my relationship with Asuelu, he's cheated on me the whole time. But the biggest thing is, so he cheated.
So he cheated more than once?
Oh, he's cheated like 12 times.
I would have done.
Okay, I feel like I've seen this scene, and now I'm worried that I'm saying the exact same thing that I said in a previous video, or I'm even more worried that I've said something drastically different. I can't imagine that. But I'm also wondering if I just saw a preview, or anyway, let's continue watching.
Into that.
Hey, Charlie, I'm ready to go.
I'm having fun here. I don't want to leave.
You guys be
Yeah, so they're showing a previous scene from years ago, right? And this whole thing, so the boys are going to a strip club, and it's a really drawn out storyline on this show. It seems inserted so that they would have something to do in the later episodes that would be dramatic. And, sex sells, I suppose, just full stop. It's really boring to watch, honestly. But we're watching this previous scene, and Jovi is the primary person. Like, we got to go to a strip club, and he seems really jazzed about it. And I'm wondering what's going on there. Of course, on the surface, if we just take the edit for what it is, it looks like he's just really into strip clubs. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. There's nothing wrong with exotic dancing or even sex work. It's not technically sex work, right? But it's kind of in that direction. And, there's nothing wrong with it. Consensual adults can do consensual things. Now, if your partner that you've committed to is hurt by it, you would think you would not do it because you would think it would be that big of a deal to sacrifice that, to give it up. But it looks like he has cut back quite a bit. I mean, the way it looked was prior to meeting her, Yara, it was likely he was going all the time. It seemed like that was his lifestyle almost, which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It seems like not a great use of your time and money, but, there's a lot of weird things about people's hobbies that are unrelatable to me. But anyway, so he's doing that. But what could it say about him? Does it say something about him regarding his schemas or traumas or attachment issues or defenses or something? It's possible. A lot of people will engage in that kind of activity because of a variety of issues related to trauma and defenses. Of course, some will go to these kinds of places because it's an easy place to victimize people in a variety of ways. Jovi doesn't seem to be in that camp, but you never know. Another possibility is that Jovi, I'll say generally speaking, and I've treated people like this who are generally feeling detached and lonely, but they don't know what to do about it. They're not equipped to actually be vulnerable or to cultivate strong attachments. So they will walk around during the day with this, this buzz going on in the background of pain and agony and loneliness and demoralization and depression. And then they have a couple drinks and it unleashes that need. That need sort of pops through the normal defenses that's suppressing it. And they need to be with someone right away. And if they could, they would have a partner that they could hug and cuddle and make out with and talk to or whatever, or a best friend or someone. But they haven't cultivated that at all. And perhaps toxic masculinity is involved, and they have no resources to rely on. They have no model. They might even think it's gay or womanly to do that kind of thing. But there's one thing available to them, and that's going to the strip club, going to the exotic dancer locale. And it's not really what they want, but it approximates what they want in that they have contact with another human being. A lot of it can be intimate and physical. Even in places where it's not legal to have physical contact between the dancer and the customer, there are these private rooms where they can get around those laws. And, they might not be having sex, but there's a physical intimacy. You can almost think of it kind of like cuddling. There's conversation, there's eye contact, there's someone that's tending to you the way a mother might tend to you. All their attention is on you. There's no other distractions. They cannot be distracted. They're serving you the way a mother would serve their child. The way a parent is just all intensely, paying attention. And that is not really what they want, because what they really want is an adult attachment and with vulnerability. But since they don't have access to that because of all the reasons I said earlier, this is a very quick approximation that can get them through the night, so to speak. And then they wake up in the morning, they're like, what did I do that? Okay, suppress. And then boom, they drink, or something happens and they're at the strip club again, or they're engaging with sex workers. And a lot of sex workers will talk either online or in person, will talk about how a lot of their customers primarily want to just talk. They just want to cuddle. They just want some human contact. That's well understood. There's a lot of jokes about that, but I don't think there's anything funny about it. I think it's just a symptom of our ever more lonely society, So it's possible that Joey's in that camp. And even though he has a spouse and he seems close enough with his mom, there's a good possibility that he fundamentally is very, very distant emotionally due to whatever sort of issues that he suffers from. So that's, as I say that one out loud, that one sounds like a top candidate. Of course, we can't know. Another function could be a way to make himself feel better about himself. You might have a guy who wants to feel attractive, or like he has money, or like he's got juice of some sort, and by going to a strip club, he's like, he has this fantasy that these women want to be with him, or I don't know, some kind of power trip of some sort. You could see someone having that kind of issue. It could also serve a function of passive aggression against Yara, which you could argue that this could be that, because he's upset at her for going off her birth control, right? If I remember the details. And he doesn't have a functional way of being vulnerable with her and saying, hey, that really hurt my feelings, or that really worried me, such that they would have enough of a conversation. They've talked about it a little bit, but maybe not fully, which I would imagine. And this is a passive aggressive way for him to get back at her, a way of communicating that he's hurt and upset. And you can imagine that being the case. So there's all that camp. The other side of this is, I don't even know if it's legit. From the beginning, I've wondered if this whole strip club thing, if it's real or not, because that scene we just watched, that flashback, it's absurd. Yara's sitting right there, and he's just like, oh my God. Now, we've heard a lot of things that indicate that it might actually be legit. It might even be worse than that, right? But it's so absurd that I don't know about it. I just have to wonder, is it shenanigans or not? Certainly this season it looks shenanigans-y, because they're at couple therapy resort. I think they're there for 2 weeks, and he has to go to a strip club, and it happens to be with the other guys, and it happens to be with the cameras, and it happens to be toward the end of the season. I don't know. It just seems a question mark, at least. All right. Well, if you want to support what we're doing here, you can become a YouTube member, and by becoming a member, you are actually paying my bills so I can do more of these videos. Also, you get access to member exclusive videos that I publish. I try to publish at least once a week. And if we get more members, I might do more videos per week that are member exclusive. Also, I will tend to reply to your comments or see your comments if you are a member, because I will sort all the comments by members and reply to those people first. And then if I have time, I get to other people. So if you want to become a member, that'd be great. Otherwise, totally cool. And everyone, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.